お前ら
かかってこい。
何行くぞ。さあこれで文句はないな。
So, in Yakuza 2 I said that I would like to see a prequel game, and what do you know, now there is one. Yakuza 0 came out this February, only in Japan of course, and it stars Kiryu and Majima in 1988, 7 years before Yakuza 1. Before playing this, I wondered if you would have to play half the game as Kiryu and then the other half as Majima, but you switch between Kiryu and Majima at certain parts in the story instead, which I think is much better. Now, I had a few expectations of the story. I expected to 1. Show the relationship between Kiryu and Nishiki, 2. Show how Majima, so to speak, turned crazy, and 3. Show why Majima has this rivalry towards Kiryu and seemingly, in Yakuza 1 at least, why he wants to kill him. I did get to see Kiryu and Nishiki's relationship, which was handled well, and now I feel that in Yakuza 1 where they become enemies is even more tragic. I did get to see Majima's transformation, but it was a lot more sudden than I expected. I did not get to see any explanation to why Majima seemingly has it out for Kiryu, or why Kiryu calls him Majima no Nisan. You saw them meet each other's gaze in one trailer, but I have to reveal that that is all you get. It's almost like they could make a sequel to this game, Yakuza 0.5 or whatever. Not that the game has sequel date, but when it comes to Majima and Kiryu's relationship, I think there's much left to explore. Well, again with my limited Japanese skills, I couldn't fully grasp the story. But it stars a young Kiryu, a member of the powerful Dojima family. He kicks a defenseless man in the face, who survives Kiryu but is killed later by someone else, and the blame is placed on Kiryu. Because his actions will reflect poorly on his mentor Shintaro Kazuma, who is in jail during the game, Kiryu leaves the Dojima family in order to not let the blame fall on Kazuma. So yeah, once again we have Kiryu leaving the Yakuza. I was looking forward to this game and having a Yakuza game actually featuring someone who is in the actual Yakuza, but once again we have to view it from the outside. Kiryu gets taken in under the wing of Tachibana Fudo, a mysterious rich young man with the powers to shut off electricity, and his second in command, the Akiyama-like Oda. The Dojima family is on top in this game, with 3 powerful underbosses, Kuze, Awano, and Shibuzawa. I found it funny that during the course of the game you fight Awano and Shibuzawa once, while you fight Kuze a whopping 5 times. Majima, meanwhile, was kicked out of the Shimano family after he disobeyed them in 1985, during the hit that Saejima carried out against the Ueno Seiwa. Now he works as a manager of Osaka's biggest cabaret club, Cabaret Grand. He wants to get back into the Yakuza, but is watched by people 24/7, and is also under the thumb of Sagawa, a man connected to the Omi Alliance, there to hold Majima's leash. Then there's the blind woman, Makimura Makoto. She features mainly, but not exclusively, in Majima's parts. I bet when you saw her in the trailers you thought that she was dead meat, as did I, but her character is handled very well, avoiding the obvious clichés. I expected Majima's parts to be eccentric and funny, but they were surprisingly dramatic, some of the Yakuza team's best work, honestly. Part of the joy of this game was seeing all the characters from previous games make appearances. Many do, but some don't. Yumi, for instance, is not in the game. It was said at one point that she's studying at university during the game's events. Nishiki's sister is mentioned once, but never appears, which I found a little disappointing. But the big absentees were Date and the florist. Sure, Date would probably be a beat cop at this point, and the florist hasn't started Purgatory yet, because the entrance in West Park is blocked off. But I wish they would have put in a cameo of some kind, especially for the florist, because this is now the only game that he doesn't make any kind of appearance in, including the PSP games. And since he's not running Purgatory here, we get a Coliseum in Osaka, but it's Coliseum only, no casino. But a lot of characters do appear, like Kashiwagi, Sohei Dojima, Shimano, Kazama, although briefly, Reina, Sera, and in sub-stories, Shinji, Daigo, and Godaruji. Daigo and Goda are both kids here, but although Goda is apparently in elementary school, his sub-story still has Majima fighting him. The Yakuza series' only instance of child abuse, I would say. Goda had a couple of classmates with him in his sub-story, and I really hoped that one of them would turn out to be Nikaido from Dead Souls, which would canonize that game almost, but unfortunately they never named the kids. Speaking of Dead Souls, there's also one certain scene that seems to pay homage to it. Daigo's younger self is pretty bold. He demands Kiryu play with him, and then that they go to a hostess bar, where the owner of course doesn't allow kids, but Daigo uses his dad's name to force his way in. Pretty ballsy from a kid in shorts and suspenders. It's also interesting to get to see the Tojo's second chairman before Sera, Nihara. There are two cities this time, Kamurocho and Sotenbori Osaka. Kamurocho is a bit different here. For one, the iconic Millennium Tower hasn't been built yet, so there's an area there that looks old and a bit run down. Kamurocho Hills doesn't exist yet either, so West Park is still alive and well and ridden with homeless. Osaka is a bit different compared to Yakuza 2. Basically it adds the areas that the second PSP game added. For reasons unknown to me, pachinko and hostess clubs have been removed, although Majima gets to run one. But sort of like how you manage the Marietta in Yakuza 2, I found it mostly boring. Karaoke-con is gone too. Instead you sing karaoke inside a certain bar, one in each city. One really nice touch though, and further proof that the Yakuza devs do continuity really well, is that there's no Matsuya in the game like Yakuza 2 and onward. Instead there's Akagyu, which I think was in Yakuza 1 just because they didn't have the Matsuya license yet, but now that they do have it, they still prioritized continuity and went with Akagyu. And the menu is still just as limited as in Yakuza 1 as well, with just a beef bowl in 3 sizes available. MEB is gone because hostess clubs are gone, the strip club Asia, golf and the hot springs/ping pongs also got the axe. In their place though you have disco dancing, RC car racing, a romantic hotline, and bikini wrestling. They're all pretty humorous, and I have to say, Kiryu answers the telephone like a boss. Now to the real meat of any Yakuza game, the fighting system. Since Yakuza 4, the series has had multiple styles, and this game is no different. In fact, it ups the number from 4 to 6, as Kiryu and Majima have 3 each. Kiryu's first style, the Shinpira style, is like the prototype version of his regular style in the rest of the series. And it was the one I used the most, and also the one with the best music I thought. Yes, whenever you switch fighting styles, the music switches to suit it. So there aren't really multiple battle themes anymore, instead style themes. Kiryu's second is the fast rush style, and it's the one I use the least personally, but it absolutely shined during the last boss battle due to the added dodges you can get. The final style is destruction, and it's a monster. Here Kiryu is super slow, but super strong. It's good if you're tired of finesse and just want to dispose of enemies a bit quicker. Kiryu doesn't even block with this one, he just sort of takes the hits. Majima's standard style, I'm not sure what it's called, it's just that, standard. I like it fine, but the other two are much more fun. Slugger has him using an indestructible bat, and it really calls back to the first boss fight with him in Yakuza 1. The dancer style is really like how Majima would fight in a boss fight, spinning around like crazy. The only thing missing really is his trademark unfair knife. All 6 fighting styles have their own heat move finishers, which makes it very varied, which I like. Another thing I like is how the flow to the fighting is back here to a greater degree than 3 and 4 had. In Yakuza 2 you could very easily and quickly follow up a throw with a heat move without waiting, and here you can too. During certain fights it flowed like a river, from combo to throw to heat action to another heat action, because here instead of having 1 heat bar with a few small extensions, you get 3 heat bars. And some heat moves do not drain all of it. More heat moves means more fun and more pain. The downside for me is that most styles except Kiryu's destruction take a bit too many hits to kill the enemies. That's why I was reluctant to use Kiryu's rush and Majima's dancer style all that often. But at least the enemies block less here than in other games. Seriously, enemies that block all the time piss me off. The level up system uses the grid like in Ishin, but instead of using experience you pay for your upgrades like in the first PSP game. You get pretty insane amounts of money from fights. but as I found, they're not quite insane enough to max out your leveling. To do that, you need to take part in a citywide minigame of buying properties and managing employees and stuff. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but at least I could beat the game anyway without doing much of it. But if you're looking for Amon, get ready to become the Kamurocho Tycoon. Speaking of money, you get to learn a skill where you can throw money around in the streets, and it distracts potential random encounters, which can be convenient. One thing that positively haunts both the streets and your wallet are the Extortionists. They are huge guys that beat all your money out of you, but you can also find them sleeping on the street sometimes and then nick some money from them. But I avoided them like the plague. They were the nemesis of the Yakuza games to me. Yakuza Dead Souls pioneered a kind of point system with Hasegawa's rewards, which you would get there for killing amounts of zombies, certain types, with certain weapons, and so on. Then in Ishin you had the Dharma system, and in Zero you have CP, I'm not sure what it stands for, and with it you can get some useful abilities like being able to run without getting tired. Then at certain points you get rewarded with videos that you can watch at the video place, like in Yakuza 2, but this time you actually get to see what he's watching, and although nobody seems to agree with me, I think that the music isn't quite as great here as it used to be. To me the series had top quality until Dead Souls, and since then it's just been good, with a few highlights. And finally the graphics. While this game looks really good, I can sort of tell that it's been downgraded from the PS4 version to fit the PS3. At least that's my guess. The screen freezes a bit after battles, some shadows look odd, and the frame rate doesn't seem quite as good as it could have been. But in any case, this is yet again a great game, and while I didn't understand nearly enough of the story, I still know that it was good with some great moments and lovely callbacks to the earlier parts of the series. Yakuza 0 also represents the developer's high point in dramatic storytelling in my opinion. In some ways this game could make a great movie. Personally I still prefer Yakuza 2's story, but certain parts in 0 should get some kind of storytelling in games award. It's that good. If you want this released in the West, do what I'm going to do and buy Yakuza 5. Then get your friends to buy Yakuza 5. And their friends, and their associates, and their dogs, whatever. Because I believe that it depends on how well 5 sells, if 0 will see the light of day over here.
いたぞ俺。桐生じゃねえよ。この野郎紛らわしいなりしてんじゃねえ。